Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Mr. American's Moments in Geography. Today we're going to continue looking at South Asia. We're going to look at the two nations of Pakistan and Bangladesh. And in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about their physical geography. We'll talk about their culture and also get a little bit into their governments. And we'll also look at a little bit of history. So let's start with Pakistan. For my U.S. listeners and for my students, if you're looking for a comparison to the United States, Pakistan is roughly about twice the size of California. So fairly large country for the region. And what we should note is that historically, when Britain had a colony here, Pakistan and India were controlled as the same territory. And it's when these two gained independence that they decided to separate. And in that separation, you saw a lot of Muslims leave India to go live in Pakistan, and you saw a lot of Hindus leave living in Pakistan to go live in India. Now, you certainly have Hindus living in Pakistan. You certainly have Muslims living in India, but you did see some shifting of population before that change. And the borders here are not 100% definite, which leads us to probably one of the most dangerous borders in the world, and the disputed territory of Kashmir. Now, Kashmir finds itself on the border between India and Pakistan. These two nations both claim it, and it's an important water source for both countries. What makes this one so deadly is that both of these countries, of course, have a past together, different faiths make up their majorities, but they're also both nuclear powers. Both have nuclear weapons. And if this were to ever escalate, it could potentially have consequences around the world, depending on the number of nuclear weapons used. So it makes it very dangerous. Certainly also, when it comes to more of the physical geography, K2, which is a part of the Himalayas, or the Himalayas, is one of the highest points in Pakistan. It's also one of the higher points in the world. It's at about 28,250 feet. Another significant connection here is the Indus River. And the Indus River plays a significant role in Pakistan as well as India's history. Ancient India and certainly ancient Pakistan, this is where those first civilizations began, and you started to see culture spread from out throughout this region. Economically, Pakistan has enough fertile land that they're actually able to meet a lot of their needs. They've got enough resources to also partially do this. About half are farmers using irrigation. They grow things like sugarcane, wheat, and rice, and cotton, and certainly have been able to, despite quite a bit of dry desert, have been able to have enough fertile land to meet their needs as far as growing food. Not 100%, but certainly have definitely had success agriculturally. Just like in India, you also have some growing industries. In Pakistan, you're going to see cement, certainly fertilizer, food processing, and chemicals. Very similar to what we saw with India in our last video too. You have those cottage industries out of people's homes, which again, certainly is an important part of the economy, especially in these more rural villages. And the people in the economy have certainly been hurt because there's been significant changes in the economy. And you've also seen the influences of groups like the Taliban as well in Pakistan. Pakistan's population stands roughly at about 200 million people. So it's a fairly large country in population. It's about not quite 2/3 of, say, the United States. They do have a series of elected officials, but they've also certainly had some military coups since their independence in about 1947 from Britain. It's, like I said, it's very much a majority Muslim nation, 97%. You'll hear languages like Punjabi and Sindhi and Urdu. You'll also certainly see, some of that spoken natively, predominantly is a rural-based society. It's about 70% rural villagers. Karachi, for example, the seaport, or Karachi, I think it's Karachi, is a seaport on the Arabian Sea, so certainly going to be important for the economics as well. And then, of course, you've got Islamabad, which is the capital, and actually it's the 10th largest city in Pakistan. But perhaps the best known, it's where the government is. Let's shift gears to Bangladesh. When it comes to its physical geography, and again, I'll give you guys a comparison to the United States, it's about the size of Wisconsin. And it has two major rivers. You've got the Brahmaputra and the Ganges rivers. And when these two rivers combine near their mouth, they form the world's largest delta, which you might recall from an earlier video, are those triangular-shaped fertile areas typically found at the mouth of a river. And so this certainly, this water system provides not only transportation, but is vital for farming in Bangladesh. Climate-wise, you're going to see mostly tropical and subtropical climates in Bangladesh today. And certainly with that comes a lot of rainfall. Flooding continues to be a major issue for Bangladesh. They also deal with cyclones, and these are quite intense tropical storms, typically with high winds and a lot of heavy rain that typically will pose a threat, especially to infrastructure and homes and other buildings in Bangladesh. And so they can be quite intense. And again, have similar characteristics to, say, like a typhoon or a hurricane, but you're going to find them in a different part of the world. Economically, Bangladesh is mostly agricultural based. You're going to see rice grown here due to the irrigation that's going to be possible. Sugarcane, jute, which is used to make a variety of things, including burlap. Wheat and tea are also grown here. But perhaps their biggest export is a lot of countries will bring their clothing production to Bangladesh. So it's not uncommon in countries around the world to see clothing made in Bangladesh. Population-wise, they're at about 12.37 million people. And that number is roughly as of 2020. And they're a very densely populated country, despite being, again, quite rural, 75%, so about 3 in 4 people. It is a quite densely populated country, so despite not a lot of area, you have a significant population present here, including in cities like Dhaka, in which is also not only the capital, but a very important port city for Bangladesh and is important for trade. The majority of Bangladesh's people speak Bengali, and they're a majority Muslim nation. They're about 83%, but you are going to see that Hindi population. Hindus make up that remaining 17% of the people of Bangladesh. So that's going to wrap up our very brief introduction here to Pakistan as well as Bangladesh. The review questions are here. They do center a little bit more on Pakistan. When this was originally made, that's all I got to. And I forgot to update it with some other questions, but for Bangladesh. So apologize for those questions not being there. Certainly for my students, you'll get other reviews that you can look at beyond this one. For my students, make sure you've been following along with the guided notes or, in your own self-created notes, typically in your notebook. For our listeners, hopefully we helped give you at least a little bit of an introduction to Pakistan as well as Bangladesh. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.